Hey, what is up, everybody? And welcome to the Get Your Bell Rung Football Podcast. He is Kevin Reynolds. I am Bobby Wall, and we are here to talk all things football and hit you with some takes that might rattle you up a bit. On tonight's show, we are going to talk about the divisional round of playoff games. We will look in to the championship weekend games, and we are going to be giving you our way too early top five QBs for the fantasy world in 2023. Kevin, how you doing, bud?
Doing pretty good. Shaved off my stupid mustache yesterday, so that has me feeling better.
You get so much stuff caught in it, like
Yeah,
drinks and food,
hate
and
that. But it's more
yeah,
breathing. It wakes me up at night. If you're breathing out your nose, I still feel the heat then coming back into my nostrils. If you breathing out your mouth, you feel it breathing back, the moisture breathing back, and it wakes me up. And I don't like it. I don't like the way it looks. So I went back to the Amish look, the Mennonite look.
I'm concerned about your breathing technique. I'm not
It's
sure
just
I've
breathing. I just don't
experienced
like it.
these.
I don't like anything interfering with my breathing. It just frustrates me and gets me upset. It almost panics me sometimes. You may or may not know this, but I've been through many surgeries in my life due to a blood clot in my arm. And one of them long ago was when they nicked an artery. I mean, when they were cutting out a rib, and I was on IV blood thinner. So I was slowly bleeding. Well, let me scratch it. I was quickly bleeding to death. And I spent a week down at Mercy in Baltimore in the ICU with 2 Percocets every 4 hours and a 6-minute freaking morphine drip. Nonetheless, I also had to have oxygen on a lot. And ever since then, I've been very panicked when I can't breathe normally. It seems weird, but it's like constant, endless PTSD.
You really know how to start a football podcast.
It was an unpleasant week. I'm going to be honest with you.
It's been an
Not
unpleasant
enjoyable. I had a chest
45
tube
seconds for me.
in me, and like that wasn't a good experience.
I also had a poor experience this weekend, although not on the level of your near death experience. But the NFL tricked me on Sunday. I turned on the TV and I looked and it said NFL football. So I clicked on it and the game pops up. And of course, Sunday, Cincinnati and Buffalo played game one. But as I'm looking out there, um, Dallas is kicking off to San Francisco. And I'm thinking, well, this is weird. I did they flexed the game. I didn't know. And I had heard rumors that Jimmy Garoppolo might be back soon. Maybe the championship games. And I look and Jimmy Garoppolo's jogging out on the field, and I'm like, what is going on here? How much did I miss? How long have I been asleep? What is happening? I watched the first play of the game. Deebo Samuel's lined up at tailback. No Christian McCaffrey. Dude, I have absolutely no clue what's going on.
Where were you for this?
In my house. It was the NFL Network who was playing last year's Niners Cowboys game.
Right.
And I was tricked because I thought that was the game that was on at the moment. So I missed the kickoff in the first few plays of the actual Cincinnati Buffalo game because I was watching the NFL put on some stupid game from last year with two teams that were playing the same day. And I was at a loss. I had no idea what was going on.
I don't. I
I know.
have nothing but
I know.
silence for that.
Which is great for radio.
Yeah. I don't really. I don't really know what to say to that. Obscure, bizarre, alarming.
Yes.
Maybe I should find a new person to do this with. I don't know this.
Don't throw me with a good time.
I'm a little concerned.
Me too. I mean, it took a good 3 or 4 minutes before I figured out what was going on.
I don't even know what to say. I'm dumbfounded. That was yeah, yes, I agree with you. That wasn't quite a life threatening happening in your life, but I can understand why you were definitely a little concerned afterwards.
Perturbed, for sure.
It's just I really don't know what to say.
Excellent. The tables
Time
have
to look in the
turned.
mirror. Time to look in the mirror and figure some things out.
The tables have turned. All right, sir. The first game on the slate that I was not tricked in was the Jaguars and the Chiefs. The Jaguars made this very, very interesting. They only lost by a touchdown, 20-27. It didn't feel like they were all that close until the end. That's when I started getting a little excited. Look, rooting for the Jaguars, the underdogs. Lawrence was okay. Wasn't great. He was missed a few throws here and there. He did have some great throws to remind you of who he's probably going to turn out to be. Christian Kirk had a nice game. Zay Jones and ETN did all right. ETN was averaging 6.2 yards a carry, so I'm not sure why he didn't get more than 10 carries this game. And then on the other side, Patty Mahomes, he didn't have a lot of stats. I mean, he looked good, not a lot of stats. He did get injured, a high ankle sprain. We'll see how that plays out. They say he's going to play, suit up this week. He practiced today. I don't know. Kelsey was a monster, 14 catches, 2 touchdowns, and we really got to see who Isaiah Pacheco can be. He looked like a man amongst boys when they gave him the rock.
Yeah, he did look sharp, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, this was a good game. You're right. It didn't seem as competitive as it was. If Agnew hadn't fumbled as they were moving down the score, this could have been completely flip-flopped. One thing I really think, though, dude, is there's the chance that the Jags are going to be a top 3-4 team in this conference for the next 5, 6, 7 years.
If they can keep this train rolling, how it is, it's hard to argue that.
Youngest roster in the freaking league.
Yes. And I think they've got money. They always have money. They're always, stacked with salary cap cash. So I have to look it up to confirm, but I can't see why this year be any different. Now, and they're losing some pieces. They're going to need a tight end. He who shall not be named is a free agent. He's leaving. But
I don't know if he will. They put it out there today that they're going to do everything in their power to re-sign him, and he wants to be there.
As much I mean,
they've revitalized his career. I mean,
yeah, why not? But the only other thing, it's funny. I really only have 2 notes for this one, and one of them is the Agnew fumble. If he doesn't fumble down, what yard line was it? Like 4?
It was down
6?
around. Yeah, it was inside the 10, just inside the 10.
If Jacksonville goes in and scores there, man, this would have been really interesting.
Game,
yeah, and so they're really downplaying Mahomes' ankle issue, and maybe for good reason. But you get a high ankle sprain, man. One little bump, one defensive lineman that comes in or offensive lineman that falls down and just rolls over and touches that ankle. We could see Chad Henne for a good portion of this game, and that that's not going to bode well against Joe Burrow.
The Chiefs are actually the underdog. Apparently, they're the first. This is the first game they've had in the Mahomes era that they're a home underdog.
I am picking the Bengals to win, but that's interesting. I did not realize they were the underdog.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. Another thing with the Jags for next year is they also, who knows what kind of mental state he'll be in, or if he's off, down at Charlestown betting on the ponies. But Calvin Ridley.
Oh yeah, you're right. That's right.
So you have an potential number 1 receiver. Boom, just right there. Didn't even have to do anything to get him. He's just already on your team. He's going to be able to practice here soon.
And what's interesting? I don't think that affects Christian Kirk's role at all.
No, if anything, it might help him.
Might, because he was the number 1 guy there, and they were smart to move Christian Kirk all around the field, and he plays very well out of the slot, and it'll be perfect with Calvin Ridley there.
Absolutely. The personal hurt is Zay Jones, who will probably still have occasional good games, so he's not going to be as consistent as he was the second half of the year.
Which is a shame because he shows flashes here and there, and he showed a lot of flashes this year. And he's an ECU guy, which is where I am in Greenville, North Carolina. So I'm kind of rooting for him. Not that I'm a big ECU fan or anything, but hometown guy. I can hope he does well. But he's just, the opportunities for him haven't been stellar.
No, they've not. But where was he? Was he with the Raiders originally, correct? Or was he with Buffalo originally?
Buffalo, I believe Buffalo drafted him, and then the Raiders, and now Jacksonville.
Oh, maybe this will work out for him. As far as the Chiefs go, they're the Chiefs. They're going to compete every year. As long as you got Mahomes, they're going to compete.
I'm telling you what, if Pacheco looks the way he did this past weekend, for the next few games, or this game, maybe Super Bowl, his draft stock for fantasy is going up, up,
Yeah, but
up.
why? I don't want to touch him if he goes too high. Because they're never going to run this offense around him. So you're still going to have these, even this game. It's not like he scored. He had a great
Because
game and he still only had 10.6 points.
because people often draft for what they want rather than what they're going to get. Does that make sense?
It does. They're often stupid.
Well, I mean,
it makes no sense.
Tough to argue.
I can't take a guy in the second round, third round that's going to get me 10.5 points on a regular basis.
And they'll put him in. Yeah, well, I was thinking third round actually. They'll put him in a couple preseason games. He'll explode for a 60-yard touchdown, and then he'll be a solid third rounder.
Yep, just way overdrafted because, like I said, you and I discussed this last week. They're never going to run this like they did when Hunt was there, where the offense almost, you could make a case, it sort of went through him, and then Mahomes just feasted because Hunt was so great. There hasn't been a back they've had since that they run it like that. And they've had some good, decent guys. They just won't do it that way anymore.
Yeah, but maybe they haven't had the guy. Maybe Pacheco is the guy. I mean, I don't think it is. I'm playing devil's advocate here, but hey, who knows?
Well, if we can build them up and get some people in some of our leagues to draft them too early or spend too much money, then all the better for us.
All right, let's move on to my favorite game of the week, the absolute demolition of the New York Giants.
I barely
was worried.
watched this game. It was just stupid.
I watched
it wasn't enjoyable to watch.
Oh, 38-7. No,
it wasn't that close.
You know what? It may not have been. I'll be honest, watching this game, and there's really nothing to talk about on the Giants side. No one really did anything. But and it's disappointing because Daniel Jones was playing so well.
He never had a chance.
This was one of the most complete games that I've seen Philly play in a very long time. Offensively, defensively, getting after the quarterback. I mean, Jalen Hurts, they scored 38 points, and Hurts only had 150 yards passing.
He didn't have to pass much when you have
right. They had 3 rushing
300
touchdowns.
yards rushing.
Yeah, I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed this game, man. It makes me feel good, honestly, about this coming week. And I have obviously some thoughts on the NFC Championship game whenever we get there that might ring some bells. We'll see. But I'll tell you a fun little story about the Eagles game. So Lincoln Financial Field, they do not open the parking lot for tailgating until 4 in the afternoon for an 8 p.m. game. Well, that's obviously not good enough for Eagles fans. So there was a lacrosse game at Lincoln Financial at 1 p.m. So all these Eagles fans bought tickets for the lacrosse game simply so they could tailgate all day long and not leave.
So would like some policeman come up to them and say, "Show me a ticket or you're out of here"?
I think to get into the parking lot, you have to have a ticket.
Oh, okay.
So they would have to have,
Gotcha.
The lacrosse ticket and a parking pass to get in. That's genius.
3 extra early hours to throw batteries at people.
Okay. All right. Well, more than that, if you tailgate, if you tailgated for the lacrosse
11
game.
o'clock, you're throwing batteries at people 11 a.m.
Right. That's right.
No harm, no foul.
Oh, man. One thing I noticed during the game, Nick Sirianni, he has got a youthful energy that not a lot of NFL coaches have. I mean, he's yelling with his players. He's jumping up, doing fist bumps. He's like looking at the camera. I like it. Maybe it's okay. Maybe that's the way head coaches are going. I mean, they keep getting younger and younger and younger. Obviously, Bill Belichick's never going to do that. That's not really Andy Reid's style. It worries me a little bit if they make it to the Super Bowl, because that's a whole different demon in and of itself with how much extra is going on, how many eyes are on your team. Are you going to be able to keep your guys contained so they don't go out and there's horror stories. But was it Warren Sapp got in trouble, I think, maybe during Super Bowl week, or I mean, there's just players that it happens to. Right.
Dumb things.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I hope that he has control of his team enough that, that's not going to happen.
And, I think a lot of it isn't really that the guys are doing anything different that week. It's that there's so much more scrutiny. Every step they take, everywhere they go, somebody is watching because they're looking for a story where, these guys, they're making it rain all season long. nobody cares. But the week leading up to the Super Bowl, all of a sudden it matters if you get in an altercation at a strip club. So yeah, they got to be a lot more careful because the spotlight is squarely on them at all times.
Yeah. And one final thing I thought was interesting is the use of Kenneth Gainwell. Now, they ran the ball a lot.
Well,
Miles
yeah,
Sanders
the
had
use of him
7 years. It wasn't always late though. Like they
I know
used
it
him
wasn't
throughout the
complete
game.
game script, but a lot of it towards the end was because
Right. And
half their
right. And his
starters were
38-yard
in.
touchdown. His
Yeah.
touchdown was. But it was interesting for me to see him playing earlier in the game. And my thought is, hey, Miles Sanders is an unrestricted free agent this year. You got Kenneth Gainwell under contract. This game's you don't need Miles Sanders for this. Maybe they'll get an extra look at Gainwell because they could. And they're going to be pleased with what they saw.
How are you worried all about your boy AJ for this weekend?
He's not on the injury report now. Final injury report. He's not on.
Okay. Well,
Just came out. I was like, hold on. Hip. I didn't see a hip. I didn't hear a hip. Where's his hip coming from? Nick Sirianni hopes he suits up, but as of today, they said he's not on the injury report.
fair enough.
Maybe they just wanted to scare me. I don't know.
Maybe they don't care for you. I feel their pain.
All right. The next game, I don't know what to say to you. Would you say that the Buffalo Bills Cincinnati Bengals game was the most surprising?
In what
Not
capacity? You just mean that they won or that they won so easily?
think that they won so easy. If you look at the Bills were Vegas's, they led they were the leaders in the house in Vegas to be the Super Bowl champs. So many people picked them preseason, picked them in season, picked them for the playoffs to win. And boy, they just got punched in the mouth.
I read a really interesting article about them yesterday about a guy who's one of their guys there that really follows them hardcore, like one of the heads of the Bills Mafia. And he wrote this scathing article, and there wasn't a single thing in it that didn't make sense about why they're losing. It was pretty crazy. If I can find it again, I'll send you a link.
Yeah. What were some of the highlights of what he was saying?
Some of it is like, say you have like a Diggs type player. You've got this guy who one of the best route runners in the league, and he's a sort of a deep threat, but not really. But you've got that. You've got a slot guy that can do it. You've got this. You built this offense to run these quick ins and out slants. But what do? You take your quarterback and just let him hold the ball forever and just sprint outside and then just chuck the ball 65 yards downfield over and over again and wonder why it doesn't work. What was another else? Like you draft this James Cook. You draft him, bring him in, say, yeah, man, he's going to be our third down guy. He's going to catch so many balls. And then what do you do all season long? You don't throw to backs. Things like that. On defense, you constantly keep getting smaller and smaller guys that you think are going to be able to get around the edge. Things like that aren't working. You want to blame it all on Josh Allen, but in reality, without Josh Allen, this team might not even have a winning record. They're winning in spite of everybody else, not in spite of him. Yeah, he has a couple turnovers, but again, they're usually on crazy plays where he's just fighting for his life. There was just so many things, offense and defense, that I was just like, man, this guy really knows what he's talking about. And it's being proven and he's talking too about the window. Any team, you only have so much of a window, and it's starting to finally shrink, right? So I don't know what's going to go on with this team.
Well, you said something interesting. Without Josh Allen, this team's, not even a 500 team.
No.
Well, it's only one person. Well, guess what? Maybe it was Brian Dable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Maybe he was the engine behind the scenes to keep this team going. I mean, I can tell you that it was not going on Sunday. Josh Allen, 0 touchdown passes, a pick. I mean, 26 rushing yards that was your leading rusher, which was Allen.
Which is your quarterback, yeah.
4 catches for Stephon Diggs for 35 yards.
Once again, instead of buckling down, gathering troops, he's over on the sideline, me, screaming at Diggs, then leaves the building, acting like a 5-year-old again. And then the next day it says, you know what, I overreacted. I was just upset. I apologize to the fans, to my teammates. No, he buckles down. He doubles down and says, would you rather that I don't care? Would you rather this? All that matters is winning. I'm like, you're an idiot. You look like a freaking child. Everybody else lost too. You didn't see them acting like they were 5. It's just there's some dysfunction there now because they were expected to do so well and they're falling well short each year. They haven't even made the championship game. Did they make it once or did they not make it at all? I don't think they made it at all these last 4 years, have they?
I think they made it 2 years ago.
Okay.
I think they made it 2 years ago.
Okay.
Regardless, I mean, you look at just at the other side of the ball, and the Bengals, man, or you know what? Let's look at the Bengals offense again because it wasn't about them. It was about the Bengals defense. They stepped up big time, and I looked up some numbers, and we'll talk about it for the AFC Championship game matchup. That I was not aware how good the Bengals defense actually was pretty much all season. This stat I find interesting. The Bengals had 71 total plays. They had 30 first downs.
Just
I mean,
pick people apart.
We're almost at half of your plays resulted in first downs.
Yeah.
That's what
I gotta tell you, dude, and
that's
I'm
in the
starting to
playoffs?
love Joey B.
Me
The
too,
dude's
man.
he's just the man. His whole demeanor,
Look at-
everything about him. And the thing is, his whole team believes the same thing we do. Like they go out on the field with that dude every game and expect to win. Every game.
They are.
Yeah, and they aren't losing much.
He's taking Joe Cool, that nickname. Because
Oh,
I think
yeah,
Joe
new
Montana was the
level.
first one with Joe Cool, right?
Whole
Did
new
they call
level.
Joe Namath Joe Cool?
Yeah, because he was calm, cool, collected. Said they beat the Colts. They were like 17-point underdogs. Beat them anyway.
I think Burrows might be the coolest of the cool because Montana's kind of a nerd, right?
No, he was big pimping. He was the talk of the town. Dude could do anything he wanted in New York City.
No, well, I'm talking about Montana.
Oh, I thought you said Joe Namath.
Well, sorry. I did. I said both. So
Gotcha.
Namath.
Yeah, Joe Montana wasn't into the limelight and all these guarantees and the whole attitude stuff. He just was awesome and just mostly
Burrows
won.
kind of nerdy himself, but he owns everything that he is, and he toes that line between cocky and arrogant. You hate him, and man, this guy's just really good, and he believes in himself.
Yeah, he's everything. He backs up everything he says or does.
And even Joe Mixon had 100 yards on the ground.
105.
Listen, you and I both were very high on Mixon coming into the year.
I had him as my 2.
He was my 3. We were both very wrong on him. He only had one 100-yard game all season. He averaged under 4 yards a carry, but not against Buffalo. He rushed for over 5 yards a carry and 105, I think, on the ground.
Yeah.
And then one other thing I saw was some guys can't play in weather. It's a weird thing. Like just they don't know how to run if there's snow on the ground or rain. And James Cook, you mentioned him earlier. I don't know if you noticed this, but he was one of those guys. He couldn't. His cuts were slow. He was slipping all over the field. And Joe Mixon wasn't. Joe Mixon was running just like there were no elements. And you've seen this before. Like I remember the Snow Bowl with the Eagles and the Lions in 2011 or something.
Hey, you were there.
But I was there, right? LaShawn McCoy, quick, shifty runner. I'm thinking to myself, well, this guy's done. I mean, you're not going to be able to play in this. And what's he do? Rushes for over 200 yards.
I loved it. I had him on my squad.
Yeah, and he just knows how to run in weather. And some guys do, some guys don't. And I mean that alone, seeing James Cook run out there, I felt bad for him.
And the thing is slick conditions should always, people don't realize this, but it should benefit the offense because the offense knows where they're going. They know where they're going to cut, which makes it a little easier. The defense has to react, and it's so much easier to slip real quick. And then in the NFL, you slip it all. Woo! 7 yards of clearance now. But yeah, they just, nothing about what they were doing looked good. They just looked sort of out of sorts, a little lost, shell shocked right from the beginning, like almost to the point they looked like they expected to lose. Yeah, I mean that's what I got. Like the feeling that I was getting from the TV was these guys don't believe that they can win this game.
And I feel bad for Bills fans.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't. I'm a Ravens fan. So I don't feel bad for anybody's fans.
I hear you. You don't feel bad for anyone in general. Just that's the type of human you are.
Can't really argue that. Well said. Hey, quickly, Joe Mixon, like in my league of record, ended up 13th. but a quarter of his
One game.
points came
One
in one
game.
game. 53 in that
Yep.
game, 209 for the season. More, just barely over a quarter of his points came in one game. You take that game down to just say even 15 points, and he just lost 38. He's clear down to about 22nd.
Right.
Just
Barely an RB2.
And part of it I still think is that makeshift Cincinnati line, although they played better towards the end of the season. And most things I've read this week say they had their best game here against Buffalo.
And I think they were missing 3 starters.
Yeah, but yet they still played so well. Great protection, great run blocking.
Right.
So that is part of it. But there were a lot of plays where Mixon just didn't look like he was leaving it all on the field. He was just sort of going through the motions.
In the season, not the game.
Yes. Yeah.
Correct. Agreed. And well, if it makes you feel better about not feeling bad for people, I do not feel bad for the Dallas Cowboys as they lose yet again in the playoffs to the San Francisco 49ers. It's interesting because they also lost in that game that I was watching earlier in the same day that I wasn't supposed to be watching. So they got 2 L's on Sunday, which is even better for me. But Dak Prescott was not good. They dominated the Buccaneers. Dak Prescott looked better than he's ever looked in his life. And then he steps in against San Francisco's defense and looks kind of like you expected him to look the whole time.
He looks like a damn deer in the headlights is what he looks like.
He had 2 interceptions. It could have been at least 4. And I'm telling you, when he threw one, it was on the final drive, I think. It was the first play of the final drive, maybe. I think it was Dre Greenlaw jumped in front of the pass and bounced off his chest. And the camera went to Dak's face, and he had this look on. It was like, I mean, he looked like Carson Wentz. Just a blank expression, a little bit confused. His mouth was hanging open.
Yeah.
And I saw that, and I knew 100%, not a chance they're driving down the field and making this play. He, like you said, deer in the headlights. He was lost and scared, and it was not going to be his day.
No, it was just, again, this game looked close, and the score was close. I mean, at one point, wasn't Dallas up 9-6?
I think so.
They were either up 9-6 or down 9-6 because it was 6-6. But they weren't moving the ball. They weren't doing anything. They looked like they were being dominated just somehow. I mean, you got to give Dallas's defense a little bit of credit.
Oh, for sure. Their defense played great.
Yeah, and Dak's giving them the ball in decent field position. They still only give up 19 points. And boy, the Niners really had to that scoring drive they had for that touchdown was just intense. I don't know what they're going to do. I wish the Cowboys would get rid of McCarthy and bring in Sean Payton, to tell you the truth. Zeke's most likely going to be going. He says he'll take a pay cut. Who knows what they're going to do with Pollard now that he had to have surgery to have his ankle put back together.
Poor guy.
Freaking, what's his face? Just complicated stuff today. Mel Kiper Jr. He says, Bijan is going to be taken by Dallas in the first freaking round. So
Kiper, who's Mel Kiper anyway?
Yeah, that Kiper, he's something else, isn't he? So they just can't win.
I tell you what, though, CD Lamb, man, he turned it on. First 8 weeks of the season, he had 0 100-yard games. Since week 8, their bye week was in week 9. And since then, including the playoffs, he's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 100-yard games. Yeah, it took him a while to get going. But
and part of that was because Dak missed a good bit of that stretch when he wasn't getting 100, correct? Didn't Dak miss 5 games in that stretch?
He did.
Yeah.
And still led the league in interceptions, in case anyone was keeping track.
But speaking of quarterbacks, that Brock, has he now played his way into the starting role? We're going to talk about Brock again later on.
Obviously, the 49ers won, but it wasn't because of Brock Purdy. 200 yards, no touchdowns, no turnovers, though. No picks.
That's it. Again, he plays what he's supposed to, and that Dallas defense was on him all day. He played. He played a pretty damn good game because a lot of guys in that situation would have thrown 2 or 3 picks, would have got sacked 7 times. But he did exactly what he was supposed to do. Don't turn it over. Don't lose a bunch of yardage.
And besides CeeDee Lamb, CeeDee Lamb had the best game of any skill position player on either team.
Yeah.
George Kittle was the only player for the Niners that really did anything, and that he was 5 catches for 95. But that was because he made the bravest catch
Yeah, it's
I have
crazy.
ever seen someone make in a football game. He was kind of deep, going over the middle.
Yeah.
The ball hits him in the hands. He bobbles it. There is a safety in a beeline for him that's going to crush him. He knows it's coming, and he still is able to bobble the ball and make the catch. Luckily, he
Got
didn't get
killed.
hit, but
What
in
that
his
fool
brain,
what
he
that
knew
Yeah.
he knew he
But
was going
what
to get
that
hit.
fool do
I know,
that you should never do?
I,
He
I know,
freaking ducked his head,
I know.
tackle, trying to spear him as hard as he can, takes his eye off of him. Kittle just sort of shimmies and shakes around him, and he dives into air because he
But
didn't keep his head up and watch his target. Otherwise, that changes that whole play. That ball's just
oh yeah,
gone.
very few guys, as you, I know you like to hear me say it. Very few guys on planet Earth would have been brave enough to stick with that ball and
Well,
catch
yeah,
it.
you in our little mini playoff league we did this weekend. We have our thread going, and
Mhm.
you put in there like, who does that? Why would he? How can he do it? And all this, and all I wrote, he's a maniac.
He's a maniac. He
Other
doesn't
people were
care.
on there trying to write this, analyze this. And I said, no, and you're like, you just wrote no. What Kevin said.
Yeah,
That's it.
it's
A
an
maniac.
absolute
Because most
maniac.
guys, no matter
Yeah,
how big, bad, strong they are, when they see these bodies all around them, all getting ready to kill them, they're not going to keep tapping that ball up in the air 4 times. They're just ducking. They're just ducking and going to the ground.
dude, I'd have been eating turf, buddy. I'm
Yeah.
not kidding. Oh,
Yeah, he just
I'm not
keeps
even gonna.
catching it, does his thing, gets up, and just wants to power bomb somebody. He's a
I'm
freaking
not
nut.
playing tough,
And
man.
it's great to have
I'd
a
have
guy
been.
like that on your team,
Yeah,
but it's also part of the reason he misses a lot of
I
time
know.
each year because he runs himself into these injuries that no other player in the league would even think to continue the play.
Gotta love him.
But you do got to love him. There's no doubt about that.
I remember a play. I think it was two seasons ago where he's running down the sideline, and there's a defender coming at him from the side. He knows he's not going to outrun the defender, and he just turns and goes 2-3 yards towards the guy just to hit him.
Just to hit him. And he got, I
Yeah,
think I remember that play because I remember Shanahan's ripping his head off on the sideline afterwards, like excited, but then he goes over to him and just lays into him like, we sort of need you on the field. You don't need to be playing the safety yourself. You don't need to be tackling the defense. Relax a little bit. Please just run out of bounds. End the play.
oh man, Kittle, love it. All right, you ready to move on to the NFC Championship game?
Indeed.
The NFC's first on Sunday, correct?
I believe so.
Pretty sure.
I
All
have
right.
it up here.
Anyway, I'm going to give an unpopular opinion right off the bat, and I think this is the Super Bowl. Preseason,
Yeah, they're
during the
first.
season,
3:00.
in the playoffs, everyone has been talking about the AFC, how their teams are better, which I agreed with until right now. I think Philly and San Francisco both, not just with how well the teams are playing, but with how they match up against the both of the AFC teams. I think the winner of the NFC Championship game will be the Super Bowl champ.
Okay, people. Vegas line. Vote. Pick the AFC. Bet heavy on the AFC.
Is everything you got?
Everything
Take
you
out a
have.
second
Bobby just picked
mortgage.
the NFC to win it. AFC it is. Throw your house, throw your more, throw your IR, everything you have. Throw it on whoever wins the AFC championship.
Look, man, if you're going to beat a great quarterback, and this is how the Giants beat Tom Brady and even an undefeated Patriots team, you got to put pressure on the quarterback.
You
Philly
got
and
to
San
do it with 4
Francisco
players.
and Philly and San
That's what
Francisco
you got to
can
do.
both
It's
do
not,
that.
yeah. It's
Yes.
not just doing it. That's why the Giants could beat Brady. It wasn't other teams could get pressure, but they were doing it with 5 or 6 guys, which left him endlessly those little dump offs, those little curl routes, those little slants.
Yep.
But the Giants both years did it with only 4, so you could just roll those linebackers in space back 2 yards and cut off all that short intermediate
Exactly.
stuff.
It's exactly what Philly did 4 years ago.
Yeah,
Same
exactly.
thing.
That's it. Pressure with 4, so you can cut down all those opportunities in a short yardage.
Now, as far as the Eagles and the Niners matchup, I mean, both of these defenses are stellar. Philly had the best pass defense in the league this year. San Francisco had the second best defense against the run. If Philly can get out to a lead like they did against the Giants, and it may force the Niners to pass more, that's going to lead right into the teeth of the Eagles defense. They're going to be able to pin their ears back. And I don't know if Brock Purdy's going to be, I don't know how he's going to stand up to all the pressure that he's going to get. He did okay against Dallas, but they only put up 19 points. And it wasn't really because of Purdy.
I think he'll be fine. When Purdy and your boy Hurts faced off in college, I think Hurts had 5 touchdowns and Purdy had 6.
Nope.
And it was 41-40.
42-41,
42-41, something like that.
Who won?
Yeah, they did win by a point, but to sit here and say that he won't be able to handle it, I don't agree with that.
Purdy isn't going up against Oklahoma's barely defense.
Right.
You don't even call it the defense. He's going to go against the team that had the most sacks in the league by like 15.
Yeah, I'm not real worried about it.
You think Niners are winning?
I do, actually.
It's going to be tough too. The cross country travel is going to, that some teams struggle with that. I think Kyle Shanahan knows enough, and he's a veteran enough coach that he can get
minimize
his team.
it.
Right. Yep. Minimize it. Now, maybe the Eagles will turn the water off in this Niners hotel, like they did the Giants. But I don't know.
Maybe
Man,
they'll have a couple Eagles fans out pelting somebody with George Kittle with some D batteries.
You think they come up with some new stuff here, man?
That's what they do. They're battery throwers.
Man, it happened like twice.
Booing Santa Claus, throwing batteries. That's how they do.
All right. So I think I'm taking the Eagles, man. I usually don't. I'm usually not very confident
it's a coin
in them.
flip. These guys could play 10 times. Each team's going to win 5 times.
Well, it can't be closer than the 1.5 spread on the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, I'm not sure what their spread is right now.
Yeah, look that up. If the Eagles can throw out their full strength offensive line, I think Hurts is going to have enough time that he's going to be able to and AJ Brown is fully healthy. I think he'll be able to pick apart this defense.
But that's the other thing with the Niners. Maybe for the first time all year, they're completely healthy. I do at least like that. Both teams have everybody. They have all their weapons, both on offense and pretty much defense. Man, it's going to be, I hope it's a heck of a game. I just don't want either team to just blow the other one out because that's just boring to watch.
Not if you're a Philly fan and it's your team doing the blowing out.
Philly's 2.5-point favorite. Cincy's down to 1 now. I guess people are starting to come back to the Chiefs now that they're getting more points.
All right. AFC Championship. The number 1 and number 3 offenses in the AFC are facing each other. This has got a chance to be an absolute barn burner. But like I said earlier with the Cincinnati defense, I didn't realize that they have the 5th best scoring defense on the season. And their defense is better than Kansas City's defense in every single metric and stat that I looked at. All of them. Cincinnati's defense was, in some cases, far superior to Kansas City's. And I think that's going to be the difference. I do. Mahomes doesn't have the weapons he used to. That doesn't matter in the regular season.
Nah, I don't think it matters now either.
I don't. Well, plus he has a bum ankle. There's a lot going against Kansas City. Now they have the superior coach for sure. Andy Reid is a Hall of Famer in my opinion. But they don't have Joe Cool, man. Joe Burrow, buddy. And no one in the league gave up more passing touchdowns this season than Kansas City. And that does not bode well when you have Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins coming to town.
It doesn't, but it's also, again, one of those out of context type stats where teams were down by 21 in the second quarter every freaking week. Well, not every week, but a lot of weeks. So they're throwing, having to catch up. So you have to take those stats with a grain of salt. The fact is they are the number 1 seed. They got Pat Mahomes and Kelsey. So any given day, nobody really wants to have to face them. I'm glad that the game's in KC because now there's this talk, this push that they're going to start doing the AFC and NFC championship games in neutral sites forever now. And I don't, this is all just getting a little too snowflakey for me, but whatever.
You had said that you didn't mind.
I didn't mind it for this week, but I didn't mind it for this because of all this crazy stuff, but I don't want it to be forever. I think if you earn that right to have that home game, you should be able to have it. But I didn't
Yeah,
mind it
I
with
agree.
the craziness that happened, with all the stupid decisions that could have been made. That was not an overly horrible one.
I hear you. No really horrible one. The quote of the week, and I know a lot of folks have been talking about this, but got to bring it up, was after the game, they were interviewing Joe Burrow, and was it Tracy Wolfson brought up the fact that a bunch of Buffalo Bills fans had already bought tickets to Atlanta, right? And that where
Yeah.
the game was going to be. They'd already bought tickets to the AFC Championship game in Atlanta, and she brought up to Burrow on the field, and he said, "Well, better get their refunds."
Yep. Yeah, he says there are a
I
lot of
love
people up
that.
there probably don't like me very much.
I love it. But I mean, what's a guy supposed to say?
Yeah, you put him on the spot. He gave an honest answer.
And what is he,
Man,
25, 26 years old? I can't imagine what would have come out of my mouth if I had just beat the Buffalo Bills and someone brought that up.
yeah,
Good for him.
he's Joe Cool for a reason, buddy. He's the man.
All right, buddy. Oh, so who you taking?
Oh, I'll take the Chiefs. I think they're
I
going to get their
love it.
little revenge game here.
I love it. I
Because
take the
what
one
Burrow's
seed.
3-0 against them.
I know
Against the
they
Chiefs.
played each other back the December 4th, and the Bengals won
Yeah.
27-24.
And they had won, I think, 2 times before. But again, I hate when people compare this. He's 3-0 against Patrick Mahomes. That's BS. They're never on the field at the same time except to shake hands. But they have had the Chiefs number, so let's see how this goes. I can't imagine Andy Reid's not going to come up with some kind of plan to stem the tide on all that.
I'm taking the Bengals, baby.
Cool.
I like it. I like it. We don't agree on anything.
But it
That
doesn't
doesn't
even
happen often.
matter because whoever wins the NFC automatically is going to win the Super Bowl.
Bang. You got that
So
right.
yeah,
Yes.
so it doesn't matter who wins the AFC game.
Thank you. I appreciate you listening for once. It's nice.
Every once in a while.
All right, buddy. You ready for are 3 ways good enough? Way, way, way too early? Or should there be more ways?
This would be a lot of ways because this
Okay.
is so far in advance. I didn't even look at a whole bunch of stats from year to year and this and
I
that
did.
because there's about 8 million things
Yeah.
that could change between now, not even just now in August, but now in 2 months from now. Imagine how much movement there's going to be by the draft. I mean, the whole landscape could be completely changed by then. And we know there's going to be a lot of movement this offseason. There really is before the
Let's
draft.
say, oh yeah, let's say AJ Brown goes out and tears his ACL in this NFC Championship game. He's not going to be ready till November.
If
That changes Jalen Hurts' outlook. Right. Yeah, sure. All right. So I'll go my number one first. Is that cool?
Knock yourself out, big
All
boy.
right. Sorry, my phone's buzzing. I got a tornado warning.
At your house?
Yeah, buddy. We got
Dude,
some
that's
weather going
awesome.
on.
We had snow here, 2 inches of snow here today.
Yeah. Let's hurry up and do this before I die. My number one QB. Let's run it back, buddy. Jalen Hurts, second year in a row. Josh Allen was QB1 in 2020 and 2021. So why not Hurts? He's got a great offense, got great receivers, great offensive line. Jalen Hurts is the goal line
What
back
league
for
were
that
you in that
offense
Jalen Hurts was the number 1 quarterback?
in points per game.
Oh, so we're
My
making up a
apologies.
different. Okay, sorry. I didn't
Well,
realize you were
I
making
didn't
up
make it up the
using different
stat.
stats that made him
Yeah,
that he wasn't actually one, but let's use other stats to pretend. Gotcha.
right.
Gotcha.
I need to make sure I'm right.
It's like
I'm
talking to
certainly
Whitey with you
not going
sometimes.
to
Like
use stats
you just
to
make
make me
crap
sound
up.
wrong.
You're like the typical, no offense to people, but you're like the Democrats. You make up your own story to fit your own narrative. For those out there,
Well,
I'm an independent. The Republicans do it too, but the Democrats really seem to make up stories to fit their own narrative.
Well, one thing I'm not making up is that he improved in every single meaningful
Yes, he
passing
was a
stat.
beast.
He rushed for over 700 yards 2 years in a row, double-digit touchdowns 2 years in a row. And he was a top 6 QB 12 out of 15 games this season.
Yeah,
He was
sharp.
very, very consistent. And consistency is important for me.
Yeah, he was good. Where do I have him? Let me look at my list here right quickly. I ended up with him wait, wrong list. Let me look here. I have him at 3 next year. Only because I still fear that I don't really consider him reckless. He's not a reckless player, but his style of play is going to cost him
It's tough.
1, 2, 3 games every year, or at least like a half of a game here and there, just enough to bring him down. And I think teams are going to see this offense now in the offseason. He's going to regress a little bit, but not a lot. Obviously, I have him at 3rd overall. So, yeah, I'm with you. He's going to be up there. And he was your preseason one, and he almost did it. I know in your mind he did, but he actually didn't, because it matters that he missed games. That's part of picking our preseason 1 through 5.
The one thing I'll say, though, is if you have your star player that's going to miss games, you want to be your quarterback, in my opinion, because I think it's easier to fill those points that you're losing with the quarterback position. If Christian McCaffrey goes out in week 15 and 16, you're not going to the waiver wire then to fill in, right?
No,
I was able to do that with Hurts.
Right.
Hurts went down, I grabbed Daniel Jones, and I just flew right through the playoffs.
Well, it depends on your league, too. Like my league being 16 teams, the starting quarterbacks are all gone. But what you at least could do is you're going to be able to hopefully get his backup on waivers that week. Yep. But you're right. I agree, generally speaking. What's that?
Who's your number one?
Let me look at my sheet.
Sorry, I didn't mean to surprise you.
My one, I just go with Josh Allen again. He was number 1 this year in actual total points. He's a monster. He's going to get you his passing yards. He's going to get you the rush yards. He's going to get you some rushing touchdowns. Not much is going to change there. I'm hoping they're going to look at things and improve their offensive strategy a bit and make it less about him, which I think could actually improve his numbers even more.
Mahomes was my QB1 in my leagues.
Oh, he was. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, Mahomes was 1. Allen was 2 by about 15 points. My apologies.
So now who's making stuff?
Well, I didn't look at points. No, I thought he was. You're right. He wasn't. At
least Hurts was 1 in points per game.
I was looking at what the hell was I looking at? Oh, I was looking at average. I hadn't clicked on points yet.
I gotcha. Yeah, I don't have much written for Josh Allen because you don't need to. He was QB1, QB2.
Yeah, and if he hadn't had that game canceled, he most likely would have been 1 overall points.
And he's 5th in red zone attempts passing for quarterbacks and 3rd in red zone rushing attempts for quarterbacks. So when the Bills score a touchdown, it's because of Josh Allen.
And it happens a lot because they move the ball as well, if not better, than any other team in the league. Absolutely. So they're always in the red. That's part of the reason those numbers are so high. The attempts in the red zone is because they are there so often because of him.
So I think our QB2 is probably the same.
Pat Mahomes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. He's my 2 as well.
Hard to go against.
Yeah, I know. And I mentioned I was kind of against him. What was he? My QB 3 or 4 last year, I think, going in the season, because I thought, with his lack of weapons was going to affect him. But nope.
There's some QB1 this year devil with a wonderful beard who mentioned in the preseason that wouldn't be the case. That guy said he might even be better because he wouldn't be feeding that squeaky wheel all the time. I can't remember that handsome devil.
You nailed it on the top of the head, my friend.
I did. I actually feel good about that prediction because there were very few people with that train of thought. But I really was. I thought getting rid of Hill was just a wonderful decision for their overall offensive scheme.
Most fantasy points, most passing touchdowns. He had the most passing yards by 500.
I know.
Plus, he runs a little bit, 350.
And plus, he doesn't even play in the fourth quarter about a third of their games.
And right,
he still puts up those numbers.
It doesn't hurt having Andy Reid as your.
He is the man. Did you read that thing today? He's the first coach in history to have 10 playoff wins from 2 different teams.
That's right.
He is. He's a wizard, dude.
It was in 5 championship game appearances in each division.
Oh yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I think that might be accurate.
And then I had to start thinking about did he really make it that often with Philly? But apparently he did.
I mean, they made 4 in a row, right?
I don't know. I mean, it was what would have been about 20 years ago now, right?
Oh man, that makes me feel old.
You are old. Just not as old as me.
Thank you. And Patty Mahomes was spry. Just like Jalen Hurts, he was a top 6 QB 12 times also. And Mahomes, he doesn't miss games. He's only missed 2 games in 5 years as a starter due to injury.
He plays hurt constantly. He's all about winning. He's all about the team, unlike a certain number 8.
All right, who's your number 4?
So Okay, I'm going a little crazy here. This
I
is a
like it.
guy that you and I have talked about. I think is moving up in the world, and I think you do too. I'm going to go with Trev. I think now with a year with Peterson, the quarterback whisperer, these receivers getting on board, if they can get he who shall not be named back, and if Calvin Ridley can be 80% of what he used to be, which he probably won't be, but maybe, dude, where this team has this, I don't think this was a fluke. I think this was just a scratching the surface of what this team could be. And he's the linchpin to the whole thing. He's the guy that's going to make it all work. And I could see him making it. He was 7th in my league of record this year. What's to say he couldn't move up to get to to get to 4th, he would have to move up a lot, but to get to 5th, he only needed 17 points.
Yeah, he was 5th in my league, just barely beating out Geno Smith.
Okay.
And I agree with you, especially with Doug Peterson, man. And obviously Trevor Lawrence has been the most, looked for quarterback, since Andrew Luck and Peyton Manning. I mean, everyone's been drooling over this guy since middle school. The thing that worries me, and obviously, we're going into next year, so we're not using this year's stats completely, but finishing as QB 24, QB 30, QB 21, QB 26.
But that was
Those are
mostly early, wasn't it?
it was
But when
right.
they were really
But
learning this offense, and
if you get those weeks, though, they kill you.
yeah,
They
oh,
like
I agree.
he can lose you a week if he's doing that. The guys like Hurts, Mahomes, Allen, they're not losing you weeks.
Right. No, I'm with
But
you. Yeah.
but listen, I'm with you. If I had to do my full top 10, Lawrence is definitely in my top 6, 7 at the lowest
Yeah,
for
because
me.
that's the thing. When you're doing a top 5 with quarterbacks, you're really only talking about 6, 7, tops 8 guys that have a real legit shot of making this. Yeah, some guys that here and there are outliers that might make a little push. But
Lawrence and Geno Smith this year. There you go.
exactly. But even then, they're so far behind. Like my top 4 in my league were Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, Burrow. And then there was a 60-point drop to Justin Fields at 5.
Yeah, and each year there's in the however the top 5 finishes, or I'm sorry, from year to year, there's always at least at least the past few years, because I went back and looked a couple of years. There's at least 2 or 3 new top 5 finishers at the quarterback position.
Yeah, like Justin Fields this year, Lamar years ago. Um, you know,
So there's going to
Herbert
be turnover.
Herbert
It's
came out
not
of
going to
nowhere.
it's not going to end the way it ended.
Right. So
My
who's
number
your 4?
my 4 is Justin Herbert. It was interesting looking up, digging into his stats. His attempts last year went up, so he threw the ball more this year, but his yards and his production dropped. And I'm trying to figure out why, because everyone on the radio is telling me it's Joe Lombardi's fault, and he was fired.
No,
So
I have my theory
wheels
on
up.
that.
Joe Lombardi was offensive coordinator 2 years ago
Yeah.
too, whenever
No,
Herbert was
it's two
great. So,
guys. It's 2 guys.
well, and guess what? I got some stats for you. Keenan Allen had 40 more catches in 2021 than he did this year. Mike Williams had 13 more. Eckler had 37 less catches in 2021. Eckler had 107 catches this year,
Yeah.
right? Allen and Williams, if you take their catch totals from 2021, which were far more than they had this year because both of them fought injuries, but you use their yards per catch numbers from this year. So we take their stats from this year and just match it with how many catches they had a year ago. 641 more yards Herbert would have had passing. I mean, that jumps him all the way up to QB6, 2 points behind Lawrence
And if he's
in
getting
most of
that,
my
then he's
lists.
also getting more scoring opportunities. He's going to get more touchdowns and even more yards on top. That's it. That's it for him this year. There's 2 guys. They're out. They missed 16 games between them.
You know what else? He had a career low in rushing yards and 0 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, that hurts.
Big time. I mean, if you give him even half the passing yards he should have gotten, plus 1 or 2 rushing touchdowns, I mean, we're talking top 4, top 5 guy easy.
And he only had 147 yards rushing altogether.
I know. Do you know why? Because he kept dumping the ball. He was doing the Tom Brady
But
thing,
I think
where
that's
the
what they want him to
3-yard
do.
passes.
They don't want to see him out
Exactly.
running because they know
Oh,
how
yeah.
ugly it looks. He gets some yards, but it doesn't look pretty when he runs. He does not look elegant.
No. All right, who's your 4?
My 4 was Trev.
Oh yeah.
But my
I'm sorry. Who's your
5
five?
is Joey B.
Yeah,
I can't
I
see
know.
any reason to not keep him in the top 5. He was 4 in my
I know.
league, by far over 5. I don't see anything changing. I think their offensive line playing a year together will be even better. And those receivers, dude, like we've said before, Tyler Boyd, he's the number 1 on a few teams in the league. Definitely the number 2 on many of them. On this team, he's the 3
He has like 3 relevant games a year because
because
why
he's
give
not
him the ball?
needed. He's not needed. He's only even out on the field when they have 3 wide receiver sets.
And don't underestimate Hayden Hurst.
Oh no, he had a big week this week.
Yeah.
And Joey
For,
Mixon, never know if he's going to bring it back together. Yeah, I can't see any reason to push Burrow out. He's young. I can't think of any reason to push him out of the top 5.
I did, and my reason is simply because history tells me that at least 2 of the guys are going to be kicked out. So
Eh?
I don't want to kick out Mahomes, Allen, or Hurts. So it had to be somebody else. And so Burrow gets the axe. And for me, you're going to find this one interesting. I threw Justin Fields in here. Now, obviously, it was close for him this season, but and this past season is the only one I think you can look at. It's tough to count his rookie year. He had a terrible Matt Nagy coached offense. And it took them a while this year to get him rolling to figure out what they had there. And once they realized, look, we got to let this dude run. This is what he does. They let it happen. He finishes QB7. He was QB5 in points per game. Technically 6, but I'm not counting Davis Webb's 1 start where he scored 20 fantasy points. So QB5 in points per game. His passing's not great. 2,200 yards, 17 touchdowns, 11 picks. Only completed 60% of his passes. But that's not what we're here for. We're here for fantasy points, right? He was 7th in the NFL in rushing, not for quarterbacks, for all players. 7th in the league. Over 1,100 yards, if my memory serves me right. 8 rushing touchdowns. That's only behind Jalen Hurts. He's the only quarterback that had more rushing touchdowns. He was 2nd in red zone carries amongst quarterbacks. This dude, he has got an incredible ceiling. Now, we have talked about his floor and how scary that is.
It's
If
really low.
Trevor Lawrence can lose you a game or 2 here or there. Justin Fields can lose you more than that. But if he can continue to grow, and if Chicago can please get him some more weapons, Cole Kmet cannot be your leading receiver with 50 catches for 544 yards. What are we doing? Me and you both, especially me, screamed Darnell Mooney is not it. He is not the guy.
Especially Hurt.
And they went out and they gave up a 2nd-round pick for Chase Claypool. Oh,
Yeah, that
I
was
mean,
crazy.
I know, maybe they can do
Didn't win
something
a
with
game.
Claypool.
After that trade, they didn't win another game all season.
Maybe they can make magic happen. I don't know. I would much prefer that 2nd-round pick. But look, you got to do something to help Fields and get him some weapons, be it free agents, and there aren't any great ones, but the draft, do something to help this guy out.
Due to a couple bonuses here and there, he had actually ended up 5th in my league of record.
Gotcha. And I don't do bonuses, so
Yeah,
that makes
so
sense.
and particularly for the running, I think he had 4 rushing touchdowns that were 50 yards and over. You and I had talked about him regressing from that. You have to count way too much on his rushing, and I can't see those long touchdowns. You can't count on those every week. I mean, he ended up high, but 2 of his weeks were 43 and 47 points. He's a guy I think has a really good shot of being top 8, but I don't know if he'll be top 5 again. But he might. But I don't really know what they're. Can't imagine them getting the horses to be that much better next year. But maybe.
No, we said this is our way
Yeah,
too early.
it could be
So I
drastic.
can't. Maybe Fields will stay there. Maybe he won't by the time the season rolls around. If I had to bet money, I'd say he probably won't. But he's in the discussion.
Oh
You
no,
can't
no,
have this
I'm with
talk
you.
without
Like we
talking
said,
about
there's about 8 guys that have a chance. He's one. He's definitely one that I would have in there. Obviously, if he came in 5th this year, he has a chance of it next year.
Right. I sent you a text a while ago, and I was looking up free agents, and just getting an early peek at them, and I said the wide receiver class is very lackluster. Which of these guys, and these are the biggest names out there, do you think would help Fields? Well, actually, any of them, considering who he's throwing to, but Sterling Shepard, DJ Chark, Marvin Jones, Julio Jones, Alan Lazard, Jacoby Myers, Juju, Jarvis Landry, Jamison Crowder, Darius Slayton. That's it, man.
None of them.
I
They're
know.
all
That's the free agent crop
mediocre
we
at
have.
best. Some of them are getting older. They're just sort of retreads.
I just
None of
heard
that's
Corey
going to really
Davis might
help.
get cut. Corey Davis would be their wide receiver one immediately.
Yeah, so I'm saying I don't see anything drastically. You're talking about bringing him in help. I just don't think that's going to happen. But again, I'm sitting here trying to be devil's advocate here that he's not going to be as good as you're saying, just so we can talk. But I actually think he'll probably still be decent. Like I said, we talked about Tuna has to make a decision of who he's going to pay as a holdout. It's either going to be Fields or Trev. I would take Trev 10 times out of 10.
Me too. But don't tell him that.
Well, I won't, but he listens, so he'll probably hear. So I got one for you then. We'll throw this at you. You'll throw this phone at you. Mm-hmm. One guy that just total outskirts of the league that you think wouldn't be in those top 8 guys who could somehow put something together, whatever the reasons are, whether it's him, whether it's receivers, whether it's a new coach, anything that you think he could somehow have a magical season, crack the top 5. I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
No, it's okay. I maybe a couple. Daniel Jones. Does Daniel Jones count?
What did you say? Does he count?
Yeah, can I use him
because
or did he finish too high?
Yeah, he did end up 9th, but nobody expected that. So no, I could still go with that. Okay. I'd buy that. Now, if you sit here and tell me Geno, well, that's not really fringe because he ended up 6th. But give me if you don't feel that's fringe enough, give me a fringier guy.
Russell Wilson.
Oh, okay. I could buy that.
He was in some people's top 5s going into the season, right? He had a historically horrible year. Cortland Sutton's not who we thought he was. He's still fine to be the number 2 because I really think Jerry Jeudy's the number 1 there now.
He is. I saw a meme today. Jeudy actually ended up in a lot of formats, the number 12 point per game receiver this year.
And Greg Dulcich was one of, if not the best rookie tight ends out there. They're going to get Javonte Williams back to take some of the pressure off Russ. If they can get a coach in there not named Nathaniel Hackett, Russ can catapult up these ranks.
That's definitely a good one. I'll buy that. I'll buy what you're selling. I got one for you.
Oh, here we go.
I told you we'd talk about him again earlier.
Oh, my gosh.
Mr. Brock Purdy. Purdy wins this game. He's the starting quarterback there next year. Garoppolo will be gone, and they're going to trade Lance to somebody for a second-round pick. Or maybe keep him around because if the Niners have proven anything this year, how important it is to have not one good quarterback, not 2 good quarterbacks, but 3.
Well, hey, let's do some theoretical stuff here. You could afford to trade away Lance with a second-round pick and bring in a veteran. What if you brought in Derek Carr? Be like, look, dude, you might not play much. You're not going to make as much money out there, but you got a chance to win a Super Bowl, man. You got a chance to go to the title.
I can't imagine Carr doing that. He wants to start, but you're right. There's some other higher end guys that they could bring in there and get some of that draft capital back that they wasted on Lance.
How about Gardner Minshew in this offense? Gardner Minshew would be so cheap.
It'd be great.
So cheap.
Yeah. So Purdy, I looked today. He's over the next 3 years going to average like $1.07 million a year. Boy, you talk about a friendly contract.
I'm surprised it's that much.
He can't until at least 2 more seasons. He's not even being in a 7th-round pick. He can't. He's not even eligible to renegotiate. So it's not like he could hold out anything. He has nothing to stand on. So I put their numbers together. In just his games, he had 112.9 points. Lance had 11.1 in 1.5 games. And Jimmy G had 167, and they weren't like stellar. Jimmy G wasn't like winning you weeks. You put them together, he had 291 points. That accounted for 8th this year, just after Trevor Lawrence. If you put their stats together, but you now have this guy with all his weapons, a dude that can sling it. And in that offense that you added Christian McCaffrey to on top of it all, this dude could put together a lucky top 5 season.
It's interesting. I'm going through this list of quarterbacks, and I'm thinking about, I wonder if these quarterbacks could do well in the 49ers offense, right? And I'm thinking about, like Derek Carr. Absolutely. Of course. Then I'm thinking, well, how about Davis Mills? Could he? You know what? I bet he could. Well, what about Ryan Tannehill? Yeah, I could see all of these quarterbacks I could see doing well
I want
because
to
of
put
Kyle
Fitz in it.
Shanahan
I
and
want to put
because of the
Fitz in it and watch him score 400 points.
offense.
Bring back Jeff
Dude,
George. Have him slang it for 420.
man, I bet he's still got a couple 80-yard bombs in that arm.
I bet he does. So it's not just that I think Brock Purdy's the second coming of Tom Brady, but if he literally is the starter all season, he has a whole year then under his belt to get even better in this offense, and that whole offense and defense comes back. Why couldn't this guy make a run at number 5?
How about Sam Darnold? Could you see him doing something in this offense?
No,
Really?
too many poor decisions. You still you have to have some level of good decision making because even with all those weapons around you, you still once in a while have to play a tough game like the Niners did this week, but he still found a way to win.
Yeah.
Sam Darnold in that game against the Cowboys would have thrown 3 picks and the Niners would have lost by 17.
All right. This offense is a one read. You hit your read, look not there, look for your second guy not there, make something happen.
Yeah, but I still just don't see it. Sam Darnold's proven to us over and over again he doesn't have it. 2 teams now, 2 different offenses. It's just not there for him. He's going to be a good backup for a lot of years.
Anything else? I'm excited for the games this weekend. Championship game. I might hide my phone. Turn it off.
I won't be
Watch it in
home
the
probably
yard.
till about 5, so I'll actually miss a lot of the first game, but gotta work, gotta do what you gotta do.
All right, sir. Well, thank you, folks out there. Thank you for listening. Make sure you check us out on Facebook, YouTube, and Spotify. Get Your Bell Rung Football Podcast. Was fun, Kevin, and I'll catch you in a week.
Real quick.
Yes, sir.
Should I sometime Sunday morning get a hold of Reg, ask her to remove all shoestrings and sharp objects from the house?
She'll be working, so you might want to let her know Saturday.
Gotcha. Will do. Peace out, everybody.
See ya.